Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee. Today's episode is going to be our review, our feedback, our experience at the the Masters CrossFit Games by Legends 2024 in the beautiful city of Birmingham, Alabama. We are going to give our feedback, good, bad. I don't even ugly, but it's not going to be, hey, just praising all the bells and whistles. We want to give some good and bad because I know Bob and Joe like that, and I think whoever does listen to this podcast that maybe wants to travel to the games, I have some ideas that I think could help them out, and I want to discuss the future of the sport because I think overall it was a really, really positive, good experience that is going to set up, I'm going to say, short-term future of Masters sport, and I mean that by saying the next 3 to 5 years. I think these guys are going to have a few good years to run at it, but I also think you have to start thinking at some point beyond Bob and Joe and Legends, and is it worth the time, the investment, the energy, and all the stress? So we are going to dive into that. But Sam, what was your feeling coming off the Bison plane? No, coming back to New Jersey and reflecting on what it was like at those, not the personal stuff, not us being together and hanging out and having a good time, just like your view of the actual Masters Games. What was like the first thought you had if people asked you, hey, how was it?
Right. They thought out of the box. This was not the way I think CrossFit HQ would have run the Masters Games. If you had them run it, it would not have been this. Bob and Joe thought out of the box, amazingly executed, and they're, listen, pluses, minuses, but I was like, this is not your previous games in that sense, and that was amazing. The fact that they could actually do something creative and different, I think, was they should be congratulated for that.
Yeah, I mean, Bob and Joe, we've had them on a few times. We'll probably have them on in the future at some point, and hearing where their whole situation started from, they essentially were running a local level competition at a box in California, and year by year it grew, and it was really for Masters. And we've been a little critical of Masters athletes in some ways, thinking like, hey, you guys are awesome. I look up to you. A lot of people look up to you, but like, you ain't them. Like, you're not Zellner. You're not Roman. You're not Tia. Like, it's like Major League Baseball and minor league baseball. And it's not disrespectful to them, but it's the objective truth. And when they're competing at the same spot, one of the loudest complaints we would always hear from them is saying, like, we're a sideshow. I'm like, well, you are. Like, you are a sideshow. No one's traveling. I shouldn't say no one. Most people are not traveling to the games to watch you. And I wouldn't either, even though I love Masters sport as much as anyone, to be honest with you. I love it. But I'm going there to watch those guys. And I don't understand why there was ever a disconnect between that and reality. It's like, well, what are we going to do? Take these guys off the main floor and watch you guys? Like, think about it from a normal perspective that you want to watch the best of the best when you go. And that's who those guys are, the names I just gave. Now, the Masters, I would love to watch them, but you have to, this is a huge operation. You have to follow the trends, the money, the views, the marketing, the sponsors. And I've always felt that there was a kind of like a negative vibe, almost like an entitled vibe from a lot of Masters athletes thinking they deserve something they did not. And Bob and Joe, Bob was a games athlete and Joe was his coach. And they have a great network of Masters athletes. They have a Masters Chatter podcast that, they discuss a lot of Masters activities with, and we interviewed a few of them at the games. But this, to me, was the best possible solution for them. And Bob and Joe are the best possible duo to run that show. And I'm so glad CrossFit gave them an opportunity to do this on the spotlight. And you could actually reverse it and say, hey, CrossFit, now you got your actual limelight. It was all about you guys for the weekend. You were no longer a sideshow. You were the show of that weekend. If you were games like that, try to put yourself in this perspective. Would you rather go to the games and be part of that crew. Basically, like, you get to share warm-up areas with the top of the top and be in the opening ceremony, but no one really cares about you when you're working out? Or would you rather be in your own venue, not with those guys, but you are the show that weekend? What do you think is better?
I think this was better. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to ask the people who competed. But I know that when I attended the games a couple of years ago, and I went into the Coliseum, and Justin LaSala, who won 50-54, we talked to him.
Yep. Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey boy. Said, and it was true. You go into the Coliseum, and it was empty when the Masters were competing in there, when they did their lifts. Even the youngest competitors, the 35 to 39. Mm-hmm. And everyone was just kind of focused on what was going on. And then they tried to figure it out, like, okay, Masters first and then the games, but it never really worked out. What I saw at this event, first of all, because you are just focused on them, it blew me away. I watched so many events with so many different age groups, and to appreciate what they did, because there wasn't some sort of distraction with everything else that was going on, was much better. And the fans were way more engaged. Was it like 10,000 people? No, but the people that were there were fully into it. And when I watched these workouts, I was fully into it. Mm-hmm. When I saw a 65-year-old woman front squatting like 200 pounds, I was just like, oh my God, what the heck is this? Is amazing. Right. So there were so many moments like that I think would never have happened had they continued the way they did.
Yeah, so you know what happens? I think that you grow up, I shouldn't say grow up, you watch the games as they become a really big event from 2010 to 2022, 23, whatever, and you watch it online and you see this arena full of people, and it has like that gladiator type feel to it. Like there's this small floor and like the stands are going up on all sides and people are screaming down at you. And you, as a Masters athlete that is hopeful to get there one day, part of what you fantasize about or envision is being in that situation and hitting a big lift and the crowd going nuts, right? In New Jersey, they send the state final football games to MetLife Stadium. And these kids probably show up there, and it's like, you're going to have 80,000 people screaming your name and cheering for you. And then you go out on the field, there's still like 2,000 people there, but it's so empty and it feels like gloomy and weird, right? That's what a lot of Masters athletes have said they've gone. They go there and they're like, there's mom and dad in the stands, 6 people from my gym over there, a few Masters athletes resting over there, but there's more empty seats than full seats. And it's a little like, it just feels weird. So, yeah, would it be cool to go play a baseball game on Yankee Stadium field? Yeah, but you're not getting the real experience of what it would be like. Where at Masters this year, there were several occasions where, especially the more intense, fun workouts, you looked around and the stands were full, bleachers, right? And then there was standing room around the floor, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people deep. And everyone's like on their tippy toes, trying to like see the angle and taking fit. And it got loud a few times.
It got loud.
I was like, holy cow, especially like the end of workouts or big lifts. And I'm like, that is so much better. It's like, all right, would you rather be in a college arena with it being full and loud, or in an NBA arena, which is much bigger, and it being a quarter full and not that loud? For the environment of being an athlete, I think you would want to go with the former. Do you think that the venue, let's talk about the venue itself, because now I kind of want to bleed into, all right, the crowd, the environment, you have your own exclusive workout, the venue itself. How did you feel going there? Where did you feel like you were like at the games, or did you kind of feel like you were at a big local comp?
Big local comp.
Same.
Yeah. It was a ginormous convention center.
Huge.
It was enormous. And so when you walked in, and then you had the vendor part of it, and then you walked all the way down to the three separate competition floors, all often going at the same time. It was like a ginormous local comp where there was just like a bunch of people everywhere.
Yeah. So I've been to Legends multiple times, and like that's what it felt like. It felt like I was at Legends again, except the athletes there were a higher caliber. There's just a deeper group. Like, these are the best of the best from around the world. Now, for anyone that wasn't down there, I don't want to give square footage because I'm not sure, but you walked in with your ticket, and to the right was like an athlete resting area. Right away to your left was kind of, you call it vendor village. And then you had to walk, I would say a good I don't know, 200, 300 yards down an escalator to a different floor. And then that's where the competition happened. And I remember thinking, like, it was, I think, one of the biggest things I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like the Javits Center, but even bigger. And I don't know what the finances, the agreement was, but I actually, one thing I would have liked, and Brian Miller actually said this, I'm going to give him some shout out to this, is I wish everything was just like closer together in one room. Did you feel at all that things were too spread out? And I'm going to give Brian's reasoning, and I actually agree with it.
I mean, a little bit, but I think in order to make the finances happen, well, first of all, it's Birmingham, so they were, it's probably a lot cheaper to have that kind of space than it would be in another big city. And I thought it was nice to have all that space. If it was really tight, and we've been at other comps where it's been really tight, like I kind of enjoyed it.
So Brian Miller is a 10-year member here at CrossFit Bison. He's married to our head coach, Liz. And Brian, to me, he was down there with us. Brian, to me, was not, painting his face, screaming in the crowd. He likes CrossFit, but he's not, like, overly into the sport. Like, he can't probably name more than 10 games athletes, right? But he'll watch it, and he's supportive. I've seen him support Liz at a lot of her comps. He comes to a lot of our comps and just showing support. But to me, if you want to make this something that is like really attractive to travel to, I do think he made a good point. He goes, why not just put all the vendors, or at least some of like maybe the premium vendors, down on the competition floor?
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
For the purpose of keeping everyone together in that same room. Because there was a few times like you're up there shopping, right? And they didn't have a lot of vendors. We'll talk about that later. But it's like, all right, you got to go back down. It's like a 5-minute trek to get back down there. Like, I got to get a 5-minute trek to go back up. If you had everything there, you're actively, because one thing about watching competitions that sucks, it's just a lot of downtime. Especially if you don't know a lot of different people that are competing. You could be there for 2 hours and have to wait. So what if they put all that shopping down there? Now you're never leaving that room. So now that room always has probably 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people in it.
That's a good idea.
So he's like, why spread it out? So I wonder if it's a financial thing. Would it help Legends CrossFit at all to maybe rent out one less room, 2 less rooms, and kind of jam pack it? Now you don't want to make it too jam packed, but you do like the vibe when you're like, man, it is crowded in here. You feel like you're in the right spot. And Brian probably fits in with hundreds of thousands of other CrossFitters worldwide, meaning they do CrossFit for workout and community. They don't care that much about the sport. But if you can get those guys to go down there, because it's like a little bit more fun and a little bit more inclusive, you're not walking around back and forth. There's stuff to do. You don't get bored. We don't go back to the apartment for an hour, sit down, then go back, right? I'm going to stay here because there's more vendors right here and it's very convenient. I think you get more people to come down and watch.
That's a great idea.
Second thought on that would be activities, right? What do Masters athletes have a lot of that Games athletes don't? Age and kids, right? There was nothing to do there for kids. There's no bounce house, which is liability, I know. There's no games. There's no face painting. There's no activities. There's no like, hey guys, like, get a free shirt if you do 20 burpees in a minute. Like Asbury has done that. And Asbury is kind of like, it's not the games, right? But they have like vendors come and like create competitions and all this stuff. So what happened was the kids that were there, they found a red ball and they found a wall. And the kids are great at this. They can make games out of anything. And these kids were throwing a ball off the wall. They're chasing all over the place. And there was a few times I'm watching these kids and like they missed the ball and it's like rolling towards the floor. And I'm like, I actually was like, oh my God, these balls are going to go right through the crowd into the workout floor. People are snatching. Oh my God, someone's going to get hurt. That's the gym owner and me saying like, get the kids away from this thing. And there was actually a Hiller video.
Yeah.
That ball that I saw those kids playing with went onto a floor and tripped someone up on a jump rope, and he was pissed. And that could have been a lot worse if that was like a lift,
True.
right?
True.
And I actually remember told one of the kids playing, I was like, guys, you got to be careful of this thing. Like, if you guys miss that ball and goes out there, you're in a lot of trouble. And the kid's like, who are you? I was like, got away. It's like a 9-year-old kid. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so old right now. I'm like getting annoyed by it. This could be a much more attractive event for spectators if you created some more like really inclusive, fun, game activity type stuff. And to me, if this thing's going to keep operating, that's a must. You have to make it a more fun thing to go enjoy, because honestly, Birmingham's not fun. It's not a fun city.
Oh,
so people are never going to go to, if it was in Austin, if it was in Orlando or something like that, which I know that was the original spot for the games was Orlando, people would go for that reason alone. No one's bringing their family to Birmingham. So, and I know part of it's cost. So if it's not going to be a fun town, you need to create the opportunity for some fun for kids.
First of all, for the good people of Birmingham, we did go to a couple really awesome restaurants.
Yes.
And there were some great places there that were pretty cool. I think some of us went to the zoo and hung out and fed giraffes and stuff like that. So the second, I don't want us to get canceled by Birmingham.
That's all right.
The second thing is, yes, a festival-like environment would be great.
Yeah.
So making it more festival-y, where there's more stuff. I mean, you don't have to have like carnival rides, but definitely something to appeal to a broader audience would make it more of a destination type of event rather than I'm here to watch, two people at my gym like do a bunch of thrusters.
Yep.
So yes, absolutely. And I think you're right. It wasn't the original the first location they chose. And this is the first time, and they didn't have a whole lot of but I think the feedback that you're giving is true. And I bet you Joe and Bob are looking at it and being like, thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. And these guys do like to bounce around. Like, if I don't know this for a fact, so don't quote me on it, but I have a feeling it won't be in Birmingham next year, not because of Birmingham. They just like to move around. Like, I bet it could go international at some point, I bet. But now that they have more time to plan this out, I bet that, that it'll be in a better spot for families. And, like, I try to envision, like, if I ever went and I had Brock, like, we could make a little, like, Disney World trip the day after and, like, make a little vacation out of it.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, because we have to factor in time off from work and all that stuff. So that's something to consider that would really help out. Here's another one. I loved that Adrian was there, Dave Castro was there, Don Fall was there. Amidst all these issues that's going on, a lot of the big wigs of CrossFit, Sean Woodland, Tommy Marquez,
Lauren Khalil,
yep. And then a lot of former games athletes were there that are either coaching or competing. Tim Paulson, like, it was just a really cool environment to see the who's who of CrossFit. And so I give them a lot of credit for showing up there. And then they had to go travel to the teens games in Michigan. Here's another thought that gets people to come and want to watch. What if you had kind of like a meet and greet with the who's who in CrossFit? Like, you hook up a Rich Froning, a Danielle Brandon, a Danny Spiegel, like some of the Pat Vellner, some of the most famous people in CrossFit, and have them, they don't have to, like, teach a seminar. You don't want to put them to work, but, like, hey, sit at a table, take pictures with people, sign autographs. There you go. Like, have, like, documented times in the workout area. So, again, it gives people a reason to stay and drink the Kool-Aid. Like, leave that place being like, this is awesome. I want to bring my friends here. Or for the people that didn't go, like, if we were all there, like, yeah, I took a selfie with Froning, I took a selfie with Danielle Brandon, like, they're like, I'm going next year. Now, there's payments involved, there's financial obligation, but right now I think there's a lot of division in CrossFit, especially on the sports side, between the athletes and CrossFit. And I think this is a way that can really kind of help mesh that and just be like, hey, we're all in this together. Like, hey, I'll spend an hour just taking pictures and selfies and signing autographs, that kind of thing.
I was a little surprised they didn't have that, because a lot of the athletes do have products and they are endorsing stuff that if they had shown up, they probably could have done pretty well financially with it.
Yep.
I wonder if what happened at the games in terms of the tragedy sort of kind of put a kibosh on that.
Yeah.
Even I was glad that I saw Don Fall and Castro all there. There was some backlash that people saying, how dare they show their faces like this when all this stuff is going on, and acting
smiling and all that.
And acting like nothing's happened. So it's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Masters games executed as well as they could have in the shadow of what had happened.
Absolutely. I actually think it was great to help.
Continue to process and move on.
Right.
In
to
some
show that
way.
we're okay.
Right. But I think it will be better next year once people have been able to process a little bit more that this and things have progressed in whatever way they will happen. So I think this was a tough situation for them, and I can't sit there and tell the athletes or CrossFit HQ that you should have done this or not. I know, trust me, if there's a financial opportunity for the athletes next year to show up, to make money, to make appearances, no doubt it would be helpful for them, and it would also be helpful for the for the games themselves.
Yeah, it just changes the vibe. Like, I think there was probably 8, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 vendors there. There was room for 50. Like, they had so much room. Like, I just think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity there. But again, year one being on your own, just to have more things to do and things to buy, you know, like.
Why didn't Sam Briggs? She was there. We saw her going to a taco place. Like,
yeah, we did.
A Mexican place. And why did she not have, if she had an appearance somewhere?
Right. Yeah.
Tons of people would have.
A Q&A, like, just like, hey, 15 minutes to ask questions and feedback, take pictures. Like, that stuff goes a long way, because I feel like that's what ties community together. It's like those actual relationships and interactions with each other, and not just following someone on social media. Let's kind of shift this towards the workouts, because
one last thing before you get there, the broadcast. What did you think of the broadcast? Because if you didn't, there was one experience to be there, another one probably if you didn't go and you just watched it on YouTube.
We did watch some of it from our apartment. Like, we didn't watch every heat of every event of every age group, right? We went down there to make sure we watched Tracy and Dan, the 2 Bison athletes that were competing down there, and we did kind of like, ooh, I want to go watch this group of athletes. I want to go watch Will Morad over there. I want to go watch, some people that we've followed, or this age group. But we did watch. We went back and took some breaks at our Airbnb, and we watched it from. I thought the broadcast was good, and it looked like, and we've talked about Bob. Bob's been pretty open about how expensive it is to run a real broadcast.
Yeah,
it looked like it was scaled back a little bit, but not to the point where it's not like they stuck a camera and just said good luck. They had cameras on the floor, up and down, left and right. They had multiple different broadcasters. And I would say the who's who of CrossFit broadcasting were there. So I thought it was good for considering the circumstances of it being the first time. And I think they tried to scale back some of the spending there. I don't know that for a fact. That's just my speculation. And I thought it was good enough that if I was watching from home, I got to see pretty much everything I wanted to. There's no way you're going to see everything of everyone. You know, there's always people, oh, you don't have my gym owner in the corner on the, like, it's just is what it is. Like, I thought it was a positive that I wouldn't expect to get much better.
I was impressed because they had 4 announcers.
Right.
Lauren Khalil, Chase Ingram, Sean Woodland, Tommy Marquez.
Yes.
And they didn't just do some of the events. They were there all freaking day.
Those guys are warriors.
They were marathoning the whole thing, and they did so many age groups and events, and so for them, I don't know how much they paid them, but probably it wasn't enough. But they did it, I think, for the good of the sport, and they did an outstanding job. Like you said, the camera work was adequate. It wasn't you're not, listen, like Bob says, it's so expensive to have amazing camera, high-end camera work. They did a really good job, I think, overall. And I don't think anyone should feel shifted in terms of what that coverage is. Now, is that broadcast experience comparable to being there? No. Being there is going to always be much better, especially for the Masters Games.
Much better.
But I think I have to give those guys and the broadcast team a lot of praise for covering so much of what went on.
What those guys do is very difficult. Like the amount of names, the pronunciations, the watching the same thing over and over for hours, being on your feet, talking, trying not to be boring. Like that's a really tough task to do. In the same breath, and then I'll get to some of the more athlete and workout stuff, they had a ton of volunteers. It was like day one. It was the first thing I noticed. It's like, God, holy cow, there's a ton of help here.
So many.
So to everyone, the judges, the setup crews, the support crews, the EMT people that were there, the medicals, you saw those red shirts everywhere. So impressed by how many people volunteered their time over that weekend. Those things only go as far as volunteers will allow them.
Yep.
So a shout out to all those guys. That was huge. That's another benefit of doing the Masters Games separate from the normal games. is you do have people that want to volunteer at both.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're going at the same time, you kind of have to, you have to take these people and put them over there, take these people, put them over there. And maybe you don't have enough support for the game. So you have to cut down the heat sizes to 10 because we don't have enough judges. Now it's like everyone, like that's what I mean by attention's on you guys. Like all the resources are there too, that I think that's another huge reason why it's smart to keep them separate, to that you're going to have a lot more support, and those competitions will not run well without support.
Absolutely.
Programming, not going to go through every workout. If you guys want to hear about more details, you can go to last week's episode with Tracy McGee, and we can dive through the workouts. I have a couple bones to pick with the programming. I will say that I think Bob and Joe are as good as anyone in the comp space at programming because it's a really good blend of creative, classic CrossFit, and balanced.
Why would you complain? You actually tested a bunch of these workouts before the competition, so you should blame yourself.
Well, because I was not programming them. I just gave feedback on a few of the workouts, and they did change one of the workouts that I did. But there was nothing. I think there was nothing for the winners. Nothing over 12 minutes long.
Oh, so you wanted longer pieces?
That's a problem for games, not for local comps. Like we have a local comp coming up here in a few weeks. The longest workout's 12 minutes, but that's more local.
We're old people, man. We don't have time for all these 20-minute plus workouts.
Well, I think there should have been an endurance test. So, for example, the first event was deadlift and running, and these guys flew through. We did it here at Bison. It was a fun workout. I think that would have been a great opportunity. Take those deadlifts out, put them somewhere else, and just make that a run, row, bike, and just make it something that would last 30 minutes. And I know that sounds logistically hard, but it's not, especially when you have Rogue and CrossFit behind you. You can get a ton of machines there. So that's one thing I think they dropped the ball on with programming, is that you can be a really bad endurance athlete and have done really well there.
Okay, fair.
So that's one thing, one of the issue I had with the programming. Athlete care. So I've been to Legends, I've been to local comps, and I've been in both where the warming up was a nightmare. No rig, no rings, limited barbell access, one rower for 80 people. I've been forced to in the past try to get really creative, like uneven flooring, just weird. They had a room for the athletes only, so no one was allowed in there unless you were an athlete or coach. You had one of those bracelets on. It was enormous. Full rig, full squat racks, full floor, and even that, it still gets crowded, but it was very, very functional. And I want to give a shout out to Bob and Joe because that's been a complaint they've gotten in the past, and they put a lot of resources into that. That's a huge deal.
It's great because how many more Masters athletes are there than there are competing at the games? Like it's an exponentially higher number.
Times 10 almost.
Right, plus all the teams competition.
So it probably was times 10.
Yeah. So for them to have had enough resources to help adequately warm up all these athletes, pretty impressive.
And Sam just brought something up that I want to talk about next. So good transition, Sam. The CrossFit Games you have to qualify for, right? You do the Open. Finish top 25%, you do quarterfinals. You finish top 200 in the world, you go to semifinals. And then from there, the top X amount, whether it's based on age group, 30 or 40 people, they make the games. So like it's a pretty objective way, like, hey, you kept the ranking high, you get to compete at the games. They also had, at the same time, a community competition going on. It was something you sign up for. A team of 4, 2 guys, 2 girls. They mixed the age groups up. It was really cool. We had an athlete from here do that competition. And I give them so much credit for that because I would have not done that. I've been like, no. We don't want to F this up. Let's keep it really clean, clear. I think it was probably one of the most brilliant decisions. And I remember I could have criticized it right away. I was like, you guys are putting too much on your plate. You're going to have to plan around them. It's a resource suck and you still had very good athletes there. I think you had to qualify for quarterfinals to be eligible to sign up. I think that was the rule.
Okay.
If I told you right after that, like, hey, Sam, I got the responsibility of running the games. I'm going to invite 500 Masters athletes. But by the way, I want to invite another 200 and create a team of 4 competition. What do you think? What would your reaction be?
Chaos.
Yeah.
Complete chaos.
Yeah. It ran so smooth. And what it did, and I think this is really smart. I don't know if this is part of it, was the thought process. It made a lot of these people that did not qualify for the games they really felt like they were part of it. And this is coming from the people that are from that culture that felt they were a sideshow. So because they know what it feels like to be a sideshow, they threw these guys into the same floor at the same time, warming up in the same area. You're not, like, imagine they put this team before in that back warehouse where the athlete warm up, or no one would go watch them. No, they were in it. And it was actually a lot of fun to watch those guys. That's something that I think CrossFit could learn from.
It did two things. One is it actually increased the amount of revenue because they had more people paying registration.
Good point.
More people competing, more people coming to watch these people because they wouldn't have come just to watch. Like, for example, Dan Coda, who was our member, went with someone from Empire Fitness and I forget what other box, maybe Hudson River. It was like Dom and Carol and I forget the fourth.
Me too. I forget
Andrea, maybe. And so, first of all, they competed with real workouts, which were similar to the Masters Games workouts, like, adapted for teams and for them, and on equipment that was high level in lanes and the whole environment, which was extremely high level. This was not a local comp. This was like super comp on steroids.
Yeah.
And they performed, like, it made them push so hard. Like, I've never seen them do so well in a team's competition that ostensibly was community, but it was like, it felt elite. And I will tell you, the way these guys competed and what they did, so amazing. And I think if you are not a games athlete, or you're aspiring to, and you still want to compete, this was like one of the best competition environments to actually be in. I can't imagine a better one short of the games where you could actually get that sort of charge experience out of it.
One of the keys to making master sport grow, stay popular is to give people a taste. Like, hey, this is what it's like. And I know a couple people that competed on teams, Stan's one of them, but I have other people that I know that I've competed with at Legends, and I ran into them down there. They're like, dude, I'm so pumped to, like, I want to be here next year. I want to do that. And like, that's part of keeping the sport alive for Masters, because it's very easy. You find 10 reasons a year to be like, it's not worth it. Like, it's just not worth it. Like, my body hurts. I'm busy. I got a job. I got kids. My knee hurts. It's not worth it, right? And if you don't create certain windows, certain pockets where people be like, they start envisioning themselves doing that, if you don't do that, it's going to die out at some point. But now you just had, I don't know how many teams, man, I want to say it was probably all divisions. It was probably close to 200 athletes is my guess. And they're high enough level to say, like, maybe I could get there, where they could be like, that inspires them to train their butt off, because this sport is only going to live on if people continue to sign up and put themselves out there. And I think that was a brilliant decision by these guys, and executed even better.
Yep.
To get another 200 people to, really go out there and get motivated to train and maybe compete at the games next year or the year after, 2 years later. And now you have these people coming back from this team competition, coming back to the affiliate, and now you have people in the affiliate that are like, ooh, I only have to make quarters to go compete there.
I bet you 10 or 15 people would have done great from our gym there.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. So now maybe there's going to be more people from this gym that try to make quarters so that they can compete on that team before next year. And then now they're the people that are competing at the games and be like, wow, maybe I could be there someday. And that's like a constant feeder. We've been talking about that as owners of a gym. Like, how do you keep feeding the system? And that's a great way to feed the future of master sport. So let's wrap this up with saying, like, where do we think master sport will be in a couple years, Sam? Like, I don't know this for a fact. I think Bob and Joe are probably committed to at least doing this another 2 or 3 years to see if they can get better, more revenue, increase the numbers. Because, again, you're just going to constantly have more and more Masters athletes enter the space as they get older. And this kind of keeps the fire alive, or reignites a fire for some people, to be honest with you. Where do you see this? Because we've actually, one of our most watched Instagram reels is you being like, no, get it out of your head. There's no money in CrossFit master sport. And it's like shared a ton of times, right? So, and we want to make sure we don't give a vibe that we're not into it. I mean, we're obviously very into it. We support it, but there is some objective truth. Like, is this thing really going to last? Because there are probably some thoughts out there that Master Sport's going to be gone at some point.
Well, Bob had said every year they lost money on Legends.
Right.
And I will say, we don't know what the finances will be from this game, Masters Games, but I will say if they didn't at least break even or make money with this iteration of it, I would be, first of all, so disappointed, so shocked. And if they couldn't pull it off financially, Joe and Bob doing what they did this year, it's almost, I don't think it could be done.
Right? Yeah. Like if they don't make money this year and like, all right, let's give it another shot next year. Like right now we're running a comp in a few weeks. I'm like still trying to figure out if it's worth it or not. But we're going to commit to 2 years of doing it. And if it's the same result 2 years in a row, then it's like, okay, writing's on the wall. You want to put your resources into something else. If these guys run the games again next year, I hope they do. Same system, maybe a different location, which is I'm assuming they'll do it naturally. And if it doesn't get better, whether it's the experience, most importantly the revenue, I could see it folding.
Do you think they made money this year?
I do, but I don't know enough to know like what were the expenses. I know that Bob's not paying for it. Like Bob said, like, it was a lot of his money that he put into Legends because they don't have CrossFit backing. I think that's what he was most excited about, was CrossFit was supporting them. And support to me is not just, here are a few judges. Here's meetings with Adrian about programming. I'm assuming there was some sort of financial contribution there, some sort of financial agreement that if there was a financial loss, it wasn't, a huge one out of Bob and Joe's pocket or Legends pocket as a team. They're still running their Legends competition in Arizona that we have people right now 2 worlds down from us trying to.
You just did one this morning.
Yeah. We have a lot of people from the gym trying to qualify. That is still live. I am curious to see if that takes a hit, though.
If you were Don Fall and you were there, you saw everything, what would your plan, goal, what would you be thinking about the Masters CrossFit Games at this?
Find a way to make it in the green. Like, find a way. You can't get rid of it. I just don't. I think if you get rid of it, you're actually going to lose a huge part of the CrossFit culture. You're going to lose a huge demographic. And I could see someone else taking it over and taking that opportunity away from you guys. You have to find a way to make it financially beneficial enough to do it, or at least get it to break even. Like it's a win for me if you break even on it. Like I do feel that way. And so that you have to find a way. So if the numbers don't line up, then, maybe you downsize even more and not rent out something that big. Maybe you make it something a little bit smaller and make the heats a little smaller, make it 30 people instead of 40 so you don't have to fit all these people in. But in my opinion, you have to give these guys a 2-year run at it to say, like, all right, can you improve year 1 to year 2? Like that's a vital. If they pull the plug on these guys right away, I think it would be a terrible decision by CrossFit, because the Masters community is the majority of CrossFit people around the globe. And that I feel that here too, is you have to find ways to keep those people in it, or pivot to a way where those guys are still in it. Because if you ignore them, you're losing the majority of your base. And it goes to show some of these younger people that at some point they just don't care about you. And you don't want to ever give that vibe. All right, thank you guys. That's going to wrap up our experience from the 2024 Masters CrossFit Games by Legends. We do have a good relationship with them, and we do support them. We're going to continue to support them, and I want all Masters athletes out there, whether you compete or not, try to do what you can to support them and the athletes that are in that fire, because it's a huge, huge operation, and it only works with support of the community. And I think it's as one of the most important things that anyone within the space should contribute to in terms of just sheer support. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.